Hi there. My name is Beth Green, otherwise known as Granny Rocks.
And I'm Sweet Baby James, otherwise known as James Maynard. I'm happy to be here.
And tonight I'm going to talk about loss or gain. Two sides of the same coin sometimes. See, I always believe in reality.
Sounds intriguing.
Oh, good. I hope so. But before I get on to the topic, I'd like to have Sweet Baby James introduce our show.
Yes, welcome to Inner Revolution, Changing the World from the Inside Out, which airs every Monday and Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Pacific Time, where we have the opportunity for Granny Beth to share her wit, her wisdom, and her uncommon sense. So, without further ado, take it away, Granny.
Okay, so this video is not meant to imply that there aren't some losses from which we can gain nothing, when loss is so devastating that we can't recover. And that could be because the loss itself is that large, or because there's no resources left, or for some reason we can't recover, and there is no shame in that. So I'm not here to shame anybody who can't do this. But I am here to talk about that possibility of gain, what can be gained, and some of you are going to get pissed off by what I'm saying, but that's okay, because I can just lose a few more followers, and then that will be some kind of a gain, right?
I'm sure.
So, okay. So, first of all, I want to talk about many kinds of losses on this show. And I'm going to do that in a minute. But first, I want to tell you about why this is on my mind. Now, I don't know if we can get this
In the camera.
in the camera.
Oh, you almost had it. There we go. Yeah, there he is.
There is
Who's
Mojo.
that?
This is Mojo, and those are his paw prints. And if you're a fan of Dreams of Peace and you saw our show on Thursday night, then you know that we lost Mojo. He was almost 15 years old, and it was time. It just had to be done. And I showed a picture of a very old sick dog. And this is Mojo just 2 years ago when he was 13. And he still has that wonderful puppy look to him. It breaks my heart. But anyway, I have been grieving. So I've been thinking a lot about loss, right? Because this was a loss that was huge to me. You know, this is a loss of an animal. And what was so incredible is how many of our fans wrote to me and talked about their experiences and how they understood how devastating it is to lose an animal that you're very, very close to. And Mojo was my constant companion. As many of you already know, Elizabeth said, hello, Elizabeth, and sending you a heart back. As many of you already know, I am disabled, I am chronically ill, I am housebound pretty much all the time, and I'm in bed a lot. So having a dog with me, he would be in bed with me, he'd walk with me, he'd be in the room with me, he'd be at the office with me.
He'd follow you around.
He'd follow me around. So there was always somebody there. And so it was, and it has been just absolutely devastating. However, today I'm beginning to come through it, but I had to grieve my heart out, and I'm still grieving. But so what did I lose with Mojo? Well, I lost love. I lost companionship. You know, I lost that steadfastness of support, that he was always there. And the older he got, the more there he was, because he wasn't running around either.
Didn't get around much anymore.
No, he wasn't getting around much anymore. So, and so what did I gain other than the opportunity to shed a lot of tears? What I gained was, and is, freedom from worry. Because the dog was really sick and he had dementia, and I was always worrying about him, and I was always stressed, and I was always focused on where he was. And in fact, it was so obvious because now I'm always looking for him because he was always there underfoot, next to me. And I've gained the freedom from that worry, and that opens a door for me. And I'm just going to use this as an example. It opened a door. And that door is the door to refocusing on something else. Of course, the first thing I want to do is replace him with another dog. But I don't think that's probably a wise idea, not at this point. But because I don't want another dog, I want Mojo, right? But I want Mojo in health, but sick enough to want to be with me all the time, but healthy enough so I don't have to worry about him. Not having to. Anyway, I have energy now to refocus on my work, on Inner Revolution, on Dreams of Peace. I can leave the house without feeling guilty about leaving Mojo on those few occasions when
You
I
sleep
do
better, which in turn gives you more energy.
Oh my God, I was up all night worrying about him because of his dementia, and he was confused, and he couldn't get on the bed and all of that. So I know that there is a gain there, and I am actually beginning to feel it, and I knew it then, but it was hard to feel. So, because I was crying my eyes out. So, grieving is is very normal. Now, let's talk a little bit about, and I know many of you will identify, but now let's talk about other kinds of losses. I want to talk about the loss of a parent. What could be the gain? How could it be the other side of the coin is, how could it be a gain? Now, if you're 5 years old and you lose your mother and your father in a horrible automobile accident, that's a very traumatic loss. If you're 30, if you're 50, if you're 70, there are different levels, of course, of any of those losses. Randy said Mojo was a sweet old guy. He will be missed. All of my love to you, Beth and James. Thank you, Randy. Randy knew Mojo personally. Everybody who knew Mojo personally knows he was special. Very, 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 very sweet, giving, loving dog. So anyway, now I'm going to start crying. Anyway, but see, a loss of a parent, if you can handle it and your life is not completely devastated, can mean a gain in other relationships, including with your significant other. Let's say you're enmeshed with your mother or your father, or and you're always on the phone with them, and you're not actually talking to your mate, whether it's a husband or wife, some non-binary person, then you can actually, you're being forced to go onto another track in your life. So it can be a gain in the depth of that other relationship, or may I say, and this is kind of wild, Betty says, you do rock. Sorry for your loss. Oh, Betty, I was just talking to Betty on another video today. We were commenting back and forth. I'm so grateful that you came, Betty. So anyway, you may discover that if you lose your mother or father, that you hate your significant other. That the only reason you're able to stay with them is because you could run to your mother and cry or whatever. Well, that's a gain too, because you're gaining a knowledge of yourself and you're, gaining in that sense. The loss of a parent can lead to gain in independent thinking. Too many of us have been impacted by our parents' attitudes, and then we're afraid we don't even realize it. Oh, well, what will my mother say? What will my father say? Blah, 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 blah. I was going through several marriages, and my parents were conservative Jews. That meant that they kept to the religion, even if they weren't that religious themselves. But they had all the rules and regulations. You couldn't get married on this day. You couldn't do this on that. And it was crazy. They actually expected me to live by those rules, and I didn't have any affinity with that kind of religion, and so I had to fight with them. You see, and some people don't make the fight. They say, "Oh well, I do it for mom," but I believe in doing what is for the highest good of all. So that may be what your mother wants, and it may not be what your mother wants, right? Okay, so you see, the loss of a parent can free you up to think more for yourself. Now, you can also, by losing one parent, you might gain in the relationship with the other parent. When my father died, for example, my mother was so lonely that she actually started to talk to me, and we totally developed a great relationship for many, many years.
I'd also like to interject that when you were talking about couples, A parent passing might also mean the couple can come closer together.
Well, that's exactly what I was saying, that we may be, I hope I said that.
You said that it might result in them seeing each other's flaws more and not getting along.
No, I mean, it could be, I thought I had said that, but I agree with you. It can be a gain in your other relationships, including a significant other, because you can't run to mommy anymore.
Yeah.
So, right? So I agree with you, James. Okay. Now, if you lose a child, now this is where people will say, how can you possibly say there's another side to losing a child? Well, it could be or it could not be. I mean, you could be devastated by it and never recover. But it could also be a gain in your ability to develop other aspects of yourself if you have been caring for that child. Same thing with an elderly parent. If you've been caring for that parent, you haven't had the time, you haven't had the freedom. It opens the door, if you can recover emotionally, to develop other aspects of yourself. It can give you freedom from a crushing financial or energetic drain. And don't say, I mean, I can already feel it. Or it could open the door for you to care for other children in our world, to become a foster parent or a big brother or sister, or to adopt or something else. It could, like, I have lost this person, and in honor of this child, I am going to think about all the other billions of children in the world who could need my help. Or it could give you the ability to refocus on your marriage if you've lost that in all of this time, and I know this happens. Now, let's say you're a kid, or even a young adult, and you lose a school. Now, oh my God, we know how kids or teenagers, like, they go, oh no, we can't move, I don't want to leave, I'm going to leave all my friends, you can't, a parent or adult has to move because they need a job or whatever it is. And it's so hard for that child to adjust. But actually, it does open up the door for that child to gain new kinds of experiences, be in new environments. Let's say you grew up in New York City, as I did, and all of a sudden you're moving to Biloxi, Mississippi, which I never did. But anyway, that could be really interesting, a very different kind of environment, different kinds of friends, and I might have to learn something, but I might be, or vice versa, right? I might have new opportunities. Suddenly I have land and nature to relate to instead of just people, right? Or vice versa. So in any school you go to, even if it isn't that dramatic, there is going to be new kinds of environments and different kinds of people to relate to. It gives you the potential to expand. That's why I said loss or gain, two sides of the same coin sometimes, right? Sometimes we really can expand. Now, supposing there's a loss of followers or fans. Well, the gain to that may be that you don't have to make yourself acceptable to your fans anymore. Let's say you're a musician, right, and you've been playing the same song for 40 years, and everybody expects you to play the same song. Well, if you lose your fans, thank God you don't have to play that song again for the 41st year. You see what I'm saying? It gives you, when you have a loss like that, it gives you the freedom to change. Now, here's another loss. Loss of your health. I'm very familiar with that one. Well, it could possibly give you a gain in terms of developing other aspects of yourself. Let's say you've been a jock and now you become a painter. You know what I mean? Or you become a spiritual teacher. Or anything is possible. There's so many aspects of ourselves that we could develop, and we get on a track. And then when we have some kind of a loss, we're thrown off that track and we say, where am I? Who am I? What am I supposed to do? Right? Now, obviously, there are some limits. Let's say you lose your health, and now let's say you've been a pianist and you lose both of your hands. That would suck. You might have to do something else in your life, but if you can find a way to talk, instead of walk, instead of play. See, again, so much of our time and energy are focused in a way because we get on a track. Now, there are amazing people who do amazing things, who say, okay, I'm a veteran of Afghanistan, and I've lost my legs, and now I have a new opportunity to run on those prosthetics and compete in a different kind of Olympics and maybe help others to recover from their experiences. You can turn that loss into another kind of a gain of your ability to help others. Now I'm going to talk about another kind of loss that people really don't like, which is a loss of cognition. You find your cognition going down the tubes. This happens to a lot of elderly people. Not that we would know about that because we're not elderly, but I tell you that I have seen over and over and over and over many people who lose cognition in terms of their memory or even their ability to track, but who gain in their ability to comprehend. They start to focus on different aspects of themselves instead of being like an encyclopedia of knowledge. They may think things through differently. They may start having different perspectives. In fact, Island says we'll come back. Looking forward to it, honey. Because some people have come to realize that a loss of cognition can be related to poor nutrition, lack of exercise, and so on. And so they may start exercising or changing their food and changing their habits, and then all of a sudden become healthier. So they may lose a few marbles, but they gain some muscles, or they gain some health. Looks like another Oh, Betty, absolutely. Just keep moving forward. I love you, Betty, already. So glad you showed up tonight. Okay. Now, here's another one. Oh, you're going to love this. Loss of your illusions about yourself or others. Oh, my God. Catastrophe. Catastrophe.
Disillusionment.
I begin to see that I'm really not ever going to be a marathon runner. Especially because I can't get out of bed. Oh my God. The loss of illusions about myself, it makes me evaluate myself on a deeper level to find out who I actually am and what I've got. And it's the same thing about losing illusions about maybe a church that you belong to and you find out that the pastor has been molesting, boys or, or some other, the Boy Scouts, right? There are so many organizations or a political group that I've been a part of or any kind of a social group. I can lose my illusions about them. Now, I can get very bitter and think, well, yeah, I'm just going to, look out for number one. Or I can learn something, right? And I can start grounding myself in reality instead of in illusions. Whether or not you focus on the gain rather than drown in the pain of the loss depends on a couple of things. Whether or not you actually have any options. I mean, you may not have any options. You may be in a coma. You're plumb out of options, right? I mean, that's a loss, that I don't know if I could tolerate. I mean, you see people who are in bombed out villages, people who are refugees who've lost everything. Some of them can recover and say, okay, well, we've been doing the same thing for thousands of years in this place, and maybe there's another way to live, and maybe there's things to learn, and there's a whole world out there. But some people don't have options because they're just living in a tent, or they have no food and they're getting weaker and weaker, or they can't see the options because of how traumatized they are or how they've been raised, or they don't have the support to take these other options. We need somebody. We can't be in the Special Olympics if there are no Special Olympics. You know what I'm saying? So, losses are usually a threat to our feeling of safety. I felt safe in this situation. Now it's gone. Kids get scared if they have to move to change schools, as I mentioned. Will they fit in? Will they be popular? Loss of a job or a career can be the same. We can look at it and say, oh, I've lost my safety. I knew that I was safe here. I was never going to lose my job. I had friends, etc. Even the loss of a mate, clearly a threat to our feeling of safety that can be overcome if we say, okay, there's a new chapter, as Betty said. Losses create incredible challenges, and sometimes we can really turn them into something expansive. You know, can I keep expanding in the face of this loss? So, one more time I say, if you have trouble with this, I'm not judging you. I'm just offering you some different ways, maybe, of thinking about loss, so it is not so overwhelming. And so perhaps you may gain something that you really need and wouldn't have another way. But what I would like to end with, aside from inviting you back, is the one thing. Oh, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you what is the one thing we can never afford to lose. But before I do, I want to remind you, we are here Mondays and Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Facebook. Or you can always contact us later. You know, you can come on later. You can comment later. I will respond to every comment if I see it, if Facebook lets me see it. Please love this show. Please like it. Please pass it on. And on Thursdays, I perform improvisational piano music at 7 p.m. Pacific time called Dreams of Peace. And now I would like to go back to the one thing we can never afford to lose, and that is hope. Because there is no upside to losing hope.
Well,
unless we can find a new hope, a new way of hoping, unless we can re-ground our hope in the new reality, instead of having a hope based on the reality we were in. With that, I would like to say that I've dedicated this show to Mojo, and I miss you terribly, but I refuse to lose hope. There's his paw print. I refuse to lose hope. Hope for joy, hope for happiness, hope for healing, not just for myself, but for our world, so that we might live in a better place for all of us. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye for now.